My brother's girlfriend accused me of something heinous, and my family believed her and kicked me out. They realized their mistake 3 years later and reached out, begging for forgiveness. My life came crashing down because of a false accusation from my older brother's girlfriend. I grew up in one of those redneck suburbs with my parents and brother. Two of us had a missing tooth. Our wardrobes consisted of checker shirts, and we all wore those silly little straw hats. Dad worked as a postal carrier, and Mom was a receptionist at a dental practice. When we were kids, Marcus and I were pretty tight. We'd spend countless hours building forts in the woods behind our house, riding bikes around the neighborhood, and creating elaborate board games from scratch. I looked up to him and loved him with my whole heart. But as we got older, everything changed. Marcus was always the golden child, honor roll student, soccer team captain, everything. Meanwhile, I was the laid-back type. Decent grades, solid friend group, very nonchalant. I was more interested in my hobbies than academic achievements. This difference became a wedge between us as we entered our teen years. By the time Marcus left for university, we barely spoke. He got into an excellent school across the country on an academic scholarship, while I stayed local and took classes at the community college. After graduation, Marcus moved to a major city and landed a job at a prestigious tech company. He'd come home for holidays and occasional weekends, always boasting about his exciting urban life and impressive career trajectory. I couldn't help feeling inadequate by comparison. I was still living with our parents, working part-time at a local electronics store, and trying to figure out my next move. Despite our differences, I thought Marcus and I were okay. I had no idea how quickly everything would fall apart. 3 years ago, Marcus got engaged to his girlfriend, Sarah, 33F. They'd been together for 2 years, and everyone was thrilled. Sarah was a pharmaceutical rep from a well-off family, and my parents absolutely adored her. She wore a beautiful platinum bracelet with her grandmother's diamonds that had been passed down through generations. Marcus was so proud when he gave it to her, and she couldn't stop showing it off. The engagement party was a huge event at my parents' house. It felt like half the town was there celebrating. I remember feeling somewhat out of place. I stuck close to my few high school buddies who still lived locally, feeling more comfortable with them than with Marcus's sophisticated crowd. About a month after the engagement, everything went to hell. It was a Thursday evening, and I had the day off work. I was in my room playing on my gaming console, enjoying having the house to myself. Marcus was visiting for a few days, taking some vacation time to start planning the wedding with Sarah and our mother. I heard Marcus and Sarah return from a lunch outing with Mom. They were chatting and laughing downstairs. I didn't think much of it. Suddenly, Sarah started screaming at the top of her lungs. I rushed downstairs to see what was happening, and suddenly Marcus was accusing me of stealing her bracelet. Apparently, she had taken it off while washing her hands and left it on the bathroom sink. When she went back to get it, it was gone. I was completely shocked and immediately denied taking it, but Marcus wouldn't listen. He kept shouting that I was the only other person in the house, so it had to be me. He said I was always jealous of his success and probably wanted to pawn the bracelet so I could finally move out and do something with my life. Our parents arrived home during this chaos, and Marcus told them his version of events. I don't even know why I was surprised when they believed him without question. My mother's face turned completely swollen from crying so hard. My father just looked at me with pure disappointment. They started searching my room, turning everything upside down, and that's when they found it. Not the bracelet, but the cash I'd been saving from my paychecks. It wasn't much, maybe $800, but still, Marcus jumped on it. He claimed I must have already sold the bracelet and that's where the money came from. I tried explaining that I'd been saving up for months because I was thinking about taking some certification courses at the tech school, but nobody was listening to me. The next few days were absolute hell. My parents and Marcus kept pressuring me to confess and return the bracelet. They threatened to call the police if I didn't come clean. I was terrified and completely alone. And after a week of constant accusations and threats, my parents made a decision that changed everything. And in that moment, I regretted everything I had ever done. They told me I had to leave. They said they couldn't trust me anymore and that I was bringing shame to the family. They gave me 48 hours to pack my things and get out. I was devastated. I had nowhere to go and no idea what to do. My childhood friend Jake, 32 million, who had recently moved back to town after finishing his degree in another state, offered to let me crash on his sofa for a while, but I knew it couldn't be a long-term solution. His apartment was tiny, and he was just getting established himself. I packed what I could into my backpack and a duffel bag, clothes, some personal items, my laptop, and a few mementos from happier times. As I was leaving, I caught Marcus watching me from the kitchen window. For a second, I thought I saw doubt in his eyes, but he quickly turned away. Walking out of that house, the only home I'd ever known, was the hardest thing I've ever done. I felt betrayed and abandoned by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. The worst part was that I was completely innocent. For the next couple of months, I bounced between Jake's couch and cheap motels when I could afford them. I took whatever work I could find to make ends meet, washing dishes, stocking shelves, landscaping gigs. It was rough, but I was determined to survive and prove my innocence somehow. Eventually, I landed a steady job at a distribution center on the edge of town. The work was physically demanding, and the hours were long, but the pay was consistent. It wasn't great money, but it allowed me to rent a small room in a shared house with some other guys from the warehouse. I slowly started rebuilding my life, but the pain of what happened never went away. I'd lie awake at night, replaying the events in my head, and wondering how things had gone so wrong. How could my family turn on me so quickly? How could Marcus, who grew up with me and knew me better than anyone, believe I would do something like that? I cut all contact with my family. They tried reaching out several times in the beginning, My mother would leave emotional voicemails begging me to come home and make things right. My father sent a few terse text messages saying we needed to talk. Sarah even showed up at the distribution center once, but I refused to see her. I couldn't bear to talk to any of them after what they'd done. They weren't my family anymore. For 3 years, this was my life. I made new friends at work and in my shared house. We'd hang out after shifts, grab beers, and watch sports. It wasn't the life I had imagined for myself, but it was mine, and I had built it from nothing. I worked hard and eventually got promoted to team lead at the distribution center. I started taking online courses in supply chain management. I was slowly figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, but there was always a part of me that was angry and hurt by what had happened. I missed my old life and family, but I couldn't forgive them for not believing in me. Every holiday season was difficult. Seeing families shopping together or hearing Christmas music would trigger a deep sadness for what I'd lost. Then last week, I received an unexpected text from my father. It simply said, "We need to talk. It's about the bracelet." At first, I was inclined to ignore it, just like all their previous attempts to contact me, but something made me pause. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe a small part of me still wanted closure. After debating with myself for hours, I decided to hear them out. I called my father, and what he told me left me stunned. The bracelet had been found. Sarah had accidentally knocked it into the sink drain while washing her hands. They only discovered this a few days ago when the plumbing started backing up, and they called a plumber to check it out. My father said Sarah was devastated when she realized what had happened, and that I had been telling the truth all along. He said they all felt terrible about what they'd done to me, and wanted to make things right. I hung up the phone, feeling a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, I felt vindicated. I had been telling the truth all along, and now everyone knew it. But I was also furious. I was angry that it took 3 years to discover the truth, that I'd missed out on so much time with my family, and that I'd struggled alone for so long when I'd done nothing wrong. Now I'm at a crossroads. My family wants me to come back. They say they want to make amends. Marcus has been calling and texting nonstop, begging for forgiveness, but I'm not sure I can forgive them. They threw me out without hesitation, chose to believe the worst about me, and left me to fend for myself for 3 years. Part of me wants to tell them all to go to hell and let them live with the guilt of what they did to me. But another part misses my old life and wonders if there's any way to rebuild what we lost. I don't know what to do. Should I give them a chance to make amends, or should I continue with the life I've built for myself without them? I'm torn and could use some outside perspective on this whole mess. Update 1. It's been a week since my original post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It really helped me sort through my feelings and decide what to do. After much deliberation, I decided to meet with my family. I felt I owed it to myself to face them and get some closure, even if I wasn't sure about reconciliation. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a small coffee shop in a neighboring town. I chose it because it was far enough from our hometown that we wouldn't run into anyone we knew, but close enough that everyone could get there easily. I was incredibly nervous on the day of the meeting. I hadn't seen my family in 3 years, and I wasn't sure what to expect. I got to the coffee shop early and picked a table in the corner where we could have some privacy. When they walked in, it hit me like a punch to the gut. Seeing them after 3 years was intense. My mom burst into tears the moment she saw me. She looked older than I remembered, with more gray in her hair and lines around her eyes. My dad looked worn and tired. His shoulders slumped like he was carrying a heavy weight. Marcus couldn't look me in the eye at first. He seemed smaller somehow, less confident than the brother I remembered. We sat down, and for a while, nobody knew what to say. Then they all started talking at once, apologies tumbling out. My parents said they had failed me as parents by not trusting me and kicking me out. They admitted they had regretted their decision every day since, but pride and shame had kept them from reaching out sooner. My father, who had always been a man of few words, talked for what seemed like hours about how he had replayed those days in his mind, trying to understand how he could have been so blind. He said he had always prided himself on being fair and just, but emotion had clouded his judgment when it mattered most. My mother, through tears, told me how she had kept my room exactly as I had left it, hoping that someday I would return. She said she would wake up in the middle of the night thinking she heard me coming home, only to remember what had happened. Marcus broke down crying, saying he would never forgive himself for accusing me and destroying our relationship. He mentioned how he had always admired me when we were kids, despite being the older one. He admitted he had been so caught up in his own life and problems that he lost sight of what really mattered. As they talked, memories of our childhood came flooding back. I remembered how Marcus stood up for me when I was picked on in elementary school. I thought about all the times we had laughed together, shared secrets, and been there for each other during tough times. It made the betrayal hurt even more, but it also reminded me of the good times we'd had. I listened to everything they said, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive them just yet. The pain and resentment from the past 3 years were still too raw. I told them I needed time to process everything. They seemed to understand and didn't push for more. My mom wanted to hug me before we left, but I stepped back. I wasn't ready for that kind of closeness yet. The hurt look on her face almost made me change my mind, but I held firm. I needed to protect myself emotionally. After the meeting, I went back to my apartment and really thought about what I wanted. Did I want to go back to my old life? Could I ever trust them again? Was it worth trying to repair our relationship? I realized that while I missed having a family, I had also grown tremendously in the past 3 years. I had become self-reliant, resilient, and had built a life for myself from scratch. I wasn't the same person they had kicked out 3 years ago. I thought about my job at the the distribution center, my online classes, and the friends I'd made. I had worked hard to get where I was, and I was proud of what I'd accomplished on my own. The idea of abandoning that and going back to my old life felt wrong. At the same time, I couldn't deny that seeing my family had stirred up a lot of emotions. Despite everything, I still loved and missed them. I wondered if I could have a relationship with them while still maintaining my independence. After a few days of reflection, I came to a decision. I called my parents and told them that while I appreciated their apology, I wasn't ready to fully reconcile yet. I told them I needed more time and space to heal. I also set some boundaries. I said I was willing to stay in limited contact with them, but I wasn't moving back home or pretending nothing had happened. I told them that if we were going to have any relationship moving forward, it had to be on my terms. They were disappointed but said they understood. They promised to respect my boundaries and give me the time I needed. My mom asked if she could call me once a week to check in, and I agreed, thinking it would be a good way to slowly rebuild trust. As for Marcus, I've decided to keep my distance for now. His actions hurt me the most, and I wasn't ready to forgive him yet. I told him I needed more time before I could consider having a relationship with him again. He was upset, but said he understood and would wait until I was ready. It's been an emotional week, with many ups and downs. I've had moments where I've questioned my decision, wondering if I'm being too harsh or if I'm missing an opportunity to reconnect with my family. But then I remember how quickly they turned on me, and I know I'm doing the right thing by taking it slow. I've also started looking into therapy options. Many of you suggested it in the comments, and I think it would be helpful to have a professional to talk to as I navigate this complicated situation. I've never been to therapy before, so I'm a bit nervous, but I think it could be beneficial. For now, my main focus is on my job and my classes. I have a big project coming up at work, and I'm determined not to let all this family drama distract me from my goals. I'm also considering moving to a better apartment. I've been saving up, and I think I'm ready for a place of my own without roommates. Thank you again for all your support. It's comforting to know there are people out there who understand and care, even if we've never met. I'll update if anything significant changes. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and I wanted to share some developments. I've been sticking to the boundaries I set with my family. We've had a few phone calls and text exchanges, but nothing too intense. It's been, okay, awkward at times, but not as painful as I expected. My parents have mostly respected my wishes. They check in occasionally but don't push for more than I'm willing to give. I can tell they're trying hard to rebuild trust, but it's a slow process. My mom calls once a week, as we agreed. These calls were strained at first, with lots of awkward silences, but they're getting easier. We usually talk about neutral topics like her work at the dental office, the weather, and my online classes. It's not much, but it's a start. My dad has been sending me short text messages, usually just to check in or share something he thinks I might find interesting. Last week, he sent me an article about a new tech company opening in our hometown. It was a small gesture, but it reminded me of how he used to clip newspaper articles for me when I was younger. Marcus has struggled with the boundary I've put between us. He's sent several long, emotional texts apologizing and begging for a chance to make things right. I've responded briefly, just telling him I still need more time. It's difficult, but I'm holding firm on this. I know he's hurting, but I'm not ready to deal with his emotions on top of my own. The big news is that I've started therapy. I found a counselor who specializes in family trauma, and we've had a few sessions so far. It's been tough digging up all the pain from the past, but I think it's helping. My therapist is helping me work through my anger and trust issues and giving me strategies for setting healthy boundaries. In our last session, we discussed how the bracelet incident was about more than just the accusation, but also years of feeling like I didn't measure up to Marcus's achievements. It's made me realize there were problems in our family dynamic long before the bracelet incident, and healing will require addressing those too. One unexpected outcome of all this is that I've gotten closer to my friends, especially Jake. They've been incredibly supportive throughout this whole ordeal. Jake even offered to come with me to any future family meetings for moral support. It's taught me that family isn't just about blood, it's about who stands by you when things get tough. Work has been a welcome distraction. I've thrown myself into my job and even received a small promotion. I'm now overseeing inventory management for my shift, which means more responsibility and a slight pay increase. It's nice to have something positive to focus on. As for my living situation, I've decided to stay where I am for now. It's not much, but it's mine and represents the independence I've worked so hard for. My parents offered to help me find a better place, but I declined. I need to do this on my own. However, I have started seriously considering options for furthering my education. There's a state university about an hour away that offers evening classes. I'm thinking about applying to their business program. It would be a big step, but I think I'm ready for it. Overall, I'm taking things one day at a time. Some days are harder than others. There are moments when I miss the easy relationship we used to have as a family, but then I remember how quickly they turned on me, and I realize I can't rush this process. My therapist says it's healthy to have mixed feelings about everything. She encourages me to be patient with myself and not feel pressured to forgive before I'm ready. We're working on strategies for handling upcoming family gatherings and holidays, which are making me more anxious than I'd like to admit. For now, my priorities are healing and building a life I can be proud of, with or without my family. It's not easy, but I'm hopeful about the future. I'm learning that it's okay to put myself first, and that setting boundaries doesn't make me a bad person. Thank you for your continued support. Your comments and messages have given me strength during this process. It's comforting to know I'm not alone in dealing with family issues like these. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my original post, so I thought it was time for a final update. A lot has changed in the past few months. The biggest news is that I've decided to relocate to a different state for a new job opportunity. It's a significant step up in my career, and I'm excited about the new challenges. The position is with a logistics company, and the work is similar to what I did at the distribution center, but on a much larger scale. It's a management role, which I've been working toward for a while. The salary is substantially better than what I was making before, and it comes with benefits like health insurance and a 401k plan. Before making this decision, I had a long talk with my therapist. We discussed how this move will affect my healing process and my relationship with my family. Ultimately, we agreed that this could be a positive thing for me, an opportunity to truly stand on my own 2 feet and define myself outside of the family drama. I told my parents about the move last week. They were surprised and disappointed, but expressed their support. My mom cried a bit, saying she had hoped we'd have more time to repair our relationship before I left. My dad was more stoic, but I could tell he was sad too. They were both worried about me being alone in a new place, but I assured them I would be fine. Marcus took it the hardest. After I told him, he showed up unannounced at my apartment, pleading with me not to go. He admitted that he felt like he was losing me all over again. It was a difficult conversation, but I stood my ground. I told him this was something I needed to do for myself, and that our relationship wasn't in a place where his opinion could influence my decision. Our relationship is better, but not perfect. We've had a few family dinners over the past few months. They've been awkward and tense at times, but we're slowly learning how to be around each other again. Trust is still a major issue. I sometimes question their motives, wondering if they truly mean what they say, or if they're just trying to ease their guilt. My therapist has been crucial throughout this process. She's helped me navigate my feelings and set boundaries. She's emphasized that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or pretending the hurt never happened. It's about releasing my anger so I can find peace. I've taken that to heart. While I don't think I'll ever forget what happened, I'm trying to forgive my family, not for their sake, but for mine. It was exhausting carrying around all that anger and bitterness, and I'm ready to let it go. As I prepare for this move, I've been reflecting on everything that's happened. 3 years ago, I thought my life was over. I had lost everything and everyone I cared about. But now I see how much I've gained from that experience. I'm stronger, more independent, and have a better understanding of my own worth than I ever had before. I don't know what the future holds for me and my family. We plan to stay in touch after I move, with weekly phone calls and visits during holidays. It's a start. Maybe with time and distance, we can build something new. For now, my focus is on the future. I'm excited about my new job, the new city, and the possibilities that await me. I've started looking at apartments online and researching the area where I'll be living. It's a mix of nervousness and excitement, but mostly I'm looking forward to this next chapter in my life. Whatever happens with my family, I know I'll be okay. I've proven to myself that I can handle whatever life throws at me, and I've learned the importance of surrounding myself with people who believe in and support me, whether they're related to me or not.